How do you know all these people?
That's a really great question.
This is Auto Collabs.
Look, if some people's superpower is running a P&L like a boss or operating a business or taking care of the insurance side, I love those people very much because none of those things are my superpower. I just happen to have some kind of strange knack for getting to know people quickly and apparently en masse and apparently keeping those relationships going for many years. Dr. Nicole Lipkin, our guest this week, fun fact, I think only you may know this, Kyle, because I just told you last week. She is the very first person I ever interviewed on a podcast ever.
Really?
Really.
How long ago was this?
This was about 4 years ago. I was at the CBT. I can't remember what it's called. It was a CBT live event.
Yeah, something forum.
Something like that in Atlanta. Right. And
got to be a forum.
It's a forum-ish. And she was a guest speaker. And I just was like, well, that's a guest speaker. She was really good. And I just asked her if I could interview her. And she doesn't know this either, but I was terrified because at any moment she was going to figure out I had no idea what I was doing. I just had 2 microphones and some headphones that looked official.
You know what, though? Methinks, because she's agreed to be on this, methinks that because she's agreed to be on the show, that A, you left an impression, so you need to give yourself a little more credit than that. And B, typically what I find, that I love most about people in this kind of category of helping others and whatnot is they're so understanding of those that are putting in the effort who may have no clue what they're doing. Like they welcome it. So I'm excited to meet her, and I'm only expecting that that's what we're going to feel and experience when we talk to her.
So she kicked off the very first ASOTU live stream. She was the first guest, and I slotted her in right there because I knew we needed something different as an industry. And I know people expected to see, I'm get my mic up. It's sagging. The mic is.
You should get that checked.
So I knew we needed something to like kind of shake people out of the trauma that they were in the middle of because we didn't know what to do. And all of a sudden, she comes up on screen and she starts talking about how human beings process change from a psychological standpoint. She's actually a practicing psychologist, so she's not just the theory. She actually has a practice, and she speaks and consults with OEMs and CEOs. Wow. And she's going to be talking about mental agility at ASOTUCon, and she's got all kinds of other great stuff going on. She's a Philly native too.
That's what it. Okay, so now
that must be why she's awesome.
Now there was like love at first Philly.
Yeah,
right.
I was like, and by the way, it's in Philly. By the way, so we're really excited to introduce you for the first time, and all of us who are going to ASOTUCon are excited to meet her for the first time, Dr. Nicole Lipkin. Nicole, it is so good to be back, having conversations about, business and life and laughing a little bit. Thanks for joining us today.
So happy to be here. Thanks for inviting me.
All right. So the first time that you got to speak to the automotive audience in our world, in the automotive State of the Union world, we had just locked down for a pandemic. We had this live stream and like thousands of people showed up, and you kind of brought a little levity to the situation in talking about something that you've really developed, it seems like, over the last 2 or 3 years, this concept of mental agility. So you're going to talk about it at ASOTUCon Live, but give us an overview so we can kind of get introduced to the term mental agility.
Totally. I think by far, hands down, it is the most important skill that any entrepreneur can develop, leader can develop, human being can develop. And it's, in my terms, the way I describe it, mental agility is all about being open and flexible to things that are coming at you. But more importantly, it's about being open and flexible internally with your own stuff. Because we just kind of just keep on going, thinking the same way over and over and over and over. And therefore, we think the same way, we feel the same way, and then we react the same way. But when we can shake things up a little bit, and when we recognize that we actually have the ability to shake things up a bit, we don't have to think the same way. And therefore, we don't have to feel the same way. And therefore, we don't have to show up or behave the same way. And that is gold. Like, that's solid gold. And I'm like going back to solid gold, remembering my dad watching Solid Gold. Remember that? Love that. But it's solid gold. It's like magic. Like when you realize that it doesn't have to always be the way you think it has to be. Bam. That's crazy.
You said
stuff.
when we are internally, what did you say? Open and what? Flexible?
Flexible.
What do you mean by open and flexible? Unpack that. I'll use a therapist term. Unpack that for us.
Unpack that. So let me unpack that.
I'm sure it was packed away for a really good reason, but unpack it for us now.
So I'll do this, this is something I talk about, when I'm speaking about it. But when you get when someone says, "Can we talk?" How do you feel?
The worst.
Nervous.
I'm like, run.
The worst. Immediately, right? Because of our own crap. Because most of us have been in a situation where we've gotten that text or call or that look, and we talk. We've been broken up with, or we've gotten in trouble, or whatever it is. So we project our own crap onto whatever that person's saying or texting, and there we go. And
so somebody says, "Can we talk?" And all of a sudden, our mind is 30 steps down, and it isn't it doesn't default to "Oh, I bet they're going to tell me how good of a job I'm doing."
Right. No, it defaults to, "Oh crap, I'm in trouble," or something bad's about to happen. And because of that, then that cycle happens. And because of the way you think, you show up with dread and anxiety and all that, or whatever it is that you feel when you get that. And that cycle, and then you just show up that way. And when you show up full of dread and anxiety, you're not able to psychologically maneuver in a conversation. You're not able to really hear what that person said. You're not able to groove with that person because you're just stuck in that dread. And I'm not saying dread's a bad thing. Dread's just an emotion, right? There's no good or bad. But when you have really strong feelings, you're less able to maneuver that conversation and that process. So, that's the thing. That's not being flexible. That's just reacting the way you always react. But we have a lot more power. We have a lot more control in the way we show up and the way we think and the way we react.
So when I think about flexibility,
Kyle, before you put a pin in that real quick, because I realized I forgot just a really important component, and then I will cede the microphone to you and Michael. But can you just give us a quick background? Because I think there are a lot of folks out on the interwebs who kind of deliver this message of, don't overreact and own your emotions and things like that. But you are different in the sense that not only do you have the educational background, but you have a clinical background where you've just spent so much time running a practice and spending time in therapy sessions, speaking with people, working with patients or clients. If you could just give us a quick overview, because I think that's just a really important baseline to set before we get into Kyle's question.
Absolutely. So my background, I'm a clinical and organizational psychologist. So what that means is that I have the clinical background. So I've been doing that for years, 20 plus years. Keeps on getting more years. So I've been a clinical and organizational psychologist for years. The organizational psychology is I take that background and I apply it to the workplace, to leadership, to entrepreneurship, to organizational culture, to company culture, to getting people working really awesomely together and grooving with one another. That's what I do. So my specialty is, leadership development, executive culture, executive coaching, culture work, culture change. Because the reality is, and I think I've said this to you before, until the robots take over, we're humans working with humans. So it's all about understanding and having expertise in human behavior, group dynamics, team dynamics. That's the stuff. And that's the stuff that's sticky and icky and gooey that we can work through, because it's us. And so when I'm doing this work, it's not about follow these 5 steps to be a really great leader or have a really great team or have a great culture. It's about get what's going inside here. Get what's going inside your team a little bit, understand a little bit about human dynamics and group dynamics so we can all maneuver a little bit better. And when we groove together, it's awesome. And when we step on each other's feet, the world's not over. Right now in our world, we're constantly stepping on each other's feet. And it's the worst, right? We can't handle disagreeing with people. We can't handle having different opinions. in this place, like offending and all of this stuff. If we could learn to groove a little bit better and know that like it's all about being flexible and open and getting it and understanding our own internal workings, like we wouldn't be fighting so much. Let's just say that.
Very good.
Yo,
Thank you,
look,
Kyle. It's all you.
No, hold on a second.
Paul and Kyle, I'm gonna need to see. Paul and Mike, I'm gonna need you to see yourself out. I got about 83 questions. Okay, next. First question.
He leaves.
Paul left the screen for those not watching. First thing is, and I'm hoping that I give you somewhere to go with this, because when I hear flexibility,
Yeah.
my mind immediately, I played sports all of my life and I am there, right? And I'm thinking of the guy that I used to play tennis with. His name was Ron Dewan. And Ron Dewan could only touch his knees when we started in freshman year
with a tennis racket.
Right? He was like,
Wow.
And
yeah.
so what I maybe want to unpack is like, what's the road to becoming more flexible? Because if you become like, the way I'm thinking of it is like, if you become more flexible, your aptitude to approach things that you have never seen or heard before, then your flexibility allows you to be a part of them, right?
Yeah.
So like,
how did Ron Dewan become, whose name I'm loving? How did Ron Dewan?
That's a movie character,
because I can remember it. So
not a real person. I love it. How did Ron Dewan become more flexible? What did he do?
He stretched every day. He worked on it, right? All that. And I'm bringing a little bit of like my this much knowledge to psychology, but a lot of times we talk about like the tools to approach new situations. It's like, it's not that there's a prescription for everything that you're doing gets like you said, the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, it's an approach. It's a flexibility to understand that these tools can be utilized in different elements and different relationships and all that. So I guess like, what's the path to gaining more? What's the I stretched every day, like sports analogy in the agility perspective?
Yeah. I mean, I'm going, when we talk and do this, I'm going to be giving some like basic tools that every single person can use and practice. And it's literally about practicing. It's the reality. It's like, just like your physicality, just like becoming more flexible physically requires a daily commitment to, like, your health, your physical health requires a daily commitment. And you're going to not do it on a daily basis. Like, you're going to have weeks where you're like, I don't want to stretch, or I don't want to work out, or I don't want to eat well. You're going to have weeks, you're going to have months, you're going to have days where you don't want to, but then if you're committed to it, you get back on track and you do the right things for your body. Right. Yep. For some reason, it's not for some reason, we can see our bodies, we can see the results. Right. But for some reason we minimize the mental stuff, because we don't see it. It's not tangible. Like, we think about mental health, we think about mental wellness. We think about the guy on the side of the street freaking out, screaming, talking to himself. We don't think about us on our everyday, our everyday work in life. But the reality is, and I'm coming around to answer you. The reality is mental health and mental wellness and flexibility, mental flexibility and agility. Like, that's how you're productive. That's how you wake up in the morning and get motivated to get out of bed even. That's how you can function doing the tasks you do when you're mentally well. That's how you take care of other people, communicate, have interpersonal relationships. We minimize that when we're comparing it to how big our biceps are or how small or big our butt is.
Why do you think we minimize it?
Because it's intangible. It's intangible. And for some reason in every culture, not for some reason, we've equated it with disease. We've equated it with weakness versus looking at the fact that, mental wellness, mental agility is literally what makes you function on a daily basis. Mental agility is what makes your relationships easier. because you can flex. Mental wellness is that motivation. It's that productivity. It's being able to move from one task to the next. It's all of that good stuff, but it's intangible.
Okay. So I'm going to here's questions 1 through 10.
Please.
This one out. Hold on just a second. Okay. So for me, there is a lot of times, and you said like the way you think leads to the way you feel. And a lot of times emotional agility is also tied to mental agility. And so like do you think one leads to the other, or is it like, does mental agility lead to emotional agility, or is emotional agility and awareness lead to a mental agility so you can approach situational awareness? Like which one kind of leads first, or how do you care for both? Because they're both intangible things that we have to approach, recognizing our historical like aptitude to approach new situations, right?
It's like a figure eight. They're attached. It's the same thing. It's like your emotional agility, your flexibility with your emotions. And what I'm saying is like you think a certain way, it affects your feelings, and then the feelings affect how you show up. It's that. It's all connected. Like you have emotional experiences constantly, whether you're aware of it or not. Like we're all having an emotional experience right now. It might be like, it doesn't have to be extreme, but we're all having it. We're all experiencing emotion right now. And it's tied into how our brain is functioning, how we're interpreting the situation. So it's this emotional and mental agility are that. It's all tied in. It's just what I'm saying is that we have way more control. We might feel or think something, doesn't mean it's going to stop, but we have way more control in maneuvering how it ends up. It's like a constant, this is an everyday thing until the day we die, because we're constantly evolving until the day we die with everything, and constantly learning with everything and forming new neural connections and all of that good stuff. But that is, this is just like our physical health, our mental agility, our emotional health is a lifelong commitment. Did I answer you? Or
Yeah,
did
I think you just have us.
It just
all,
created
no.
more
I have-
questions.
So okay, this one ready.
Kyle wasn't
Okay,
kidding.
no wait, I have to ask one more question and then I'll hand it over. This might be a long podcast. Y'all hang with us. All right, so and I apologize if we go like another angle here, because you said like it's a lifelong commitment, and I was just thinking about the flexibility thing, and my daughter is 8, right? And my daughter who's 8 at the beginning of the summer couldn't touch her toes. Now Ron Dewan, it took him like 4 years to be able to.
We gotta find Ron Dewan.
I need to meet Ron Dewan.
He is the 5th guest of this podcast today.
He's amazing.
He's Dewan.
But my daughter, by the end of the summer, can now like her ability to stretch quicker, both physically and mentally, is a lot stronger, right? She can move and adjust quicker. And you're doing this thing called Hey Kiddo, I believe is what it's called, right? Where you're working with children in their early development and parents to educate and give them the ability to have the awareness of their mind and their emotions to be able to approach everyday situations. So like maybe this kind of 2-part is what are you seeing of the results out of that type of work, and how can, as adults, we take the assumption of the mind more of that childlike ability potentially? Are you taking some of the learnings that you're getting from working with kids in that way and able to pull adults back to that ability to be more flexible more quickly, because like our physical bodies maybe break down a lot quicker than maybe our mental bodies can, and maybe we can be more childlike in that. I don't know, I'm just like thinking.
I like how you're thinking. Like kids learn, like when you teach kids a language, for example, early on, they learn it much quicker than if we learn a second language later on. Kids' brains are just like, they're just taking in so much information. It's not fixed, like it's coming, and their neural connections are so quick. So they can learn this stuff quicker. Same with their bodies. Like Ron Dewan also had a longer distance to stretch than your daughter, and all of that. but her body, like it hasn't been through the aches and pains of aging yet, right? So she has that ability to flex and move, and her body is still forming and developing, and her mind's still forming and developing. So there's so much flexibility, and she's learning new things for the first time. Like, I think one of the most amazing things about being a parent is like seeing life again through new eyes. Like that's what that joy is, like incredible. And it's like, and I'm sure all of us are experiencing that. Like, it's so crazy to see life again and see the things that you've gotten so used to and are so old to you, like that amazing magical joy that a kid has. So yeah, the kids have beginner's mind, which is like a whole Buddhism concept, right? Like approaching things with a beginner's mind, like freeing yourself from that kind of judgment and just approaching it with a beginner's mind. That's kids. Like they are learning new things. And so they adapt and they learn, and they haven't learned yet. I mean, they're starting 8 years old. You're starting. They haven't learned that fear. Like you look at a kid skiing, they're fearless. You look at an adult skiing that's going.
All I can think of is an ACL surgery, right?
Yeah, you're terrified. Like because of, again, our experiences, and we're applying the things we've learned, like all of that, they haven't learned that yet.
Which probably makes you more prone to get injured anyway, if you're overthinking it, right?
1,000%. So yeah. And like, hey kiddo, yeah, that's my startup. And it's like super exciting. And we're really at the beginning of it. And it's like a coaching app for parents. It's getting parents in that mindset again. It's giving parents that coaching and those tools to open up the lines of communication with their kids. So kids are more comfortable opening up, because somewhere along the line, we have to change the dialogue around mental well-being, mental agility. Like all of our lives have been, and our generations have been all about like, even though things are starting to open up and okay, like that, you know, we shouldn't talk about that stuff, or it's a weakness or whatever. Dialogue needs to change, and it needs to start at home with parents opening up the lines of communication. So it's not weird and it's okay.
Yeah.
Can I ask you this?
Yeah.
You mentioned the word projection earlier, how we kind of project, you know, do you find, speaking for myself, you know, and I've opened up about it a lot in more recently in the last few years, my own challenges with mental health and my journey to recovery and all of those sorts of things. One thing that I've found is that today we have individuals with very strong opinions who seem to have all the answers, minus the nuance, minus the context of our own individual circumstances. So you go on to, let's say you go onto YouTube and it's expert being interviewed about their mental agility, their toughness, etc. And their answers are typically like this: I don't think about it, I just do it. Do you find that that's caused a challenge for people, whether it's in the workplace or personally, where now all of a sudden we are accepting somebody else's own expectations of themselves and then judging ourselves against that? Great. And then all of a sudden we're like, and I love, by the way, let me preface what I'm about to say by, I love the guy. But I know when Gary Vee first came out, documenting his life, which is 18-hour days, and he loves it. And even though he's talking about happiness and fulfillment and things of that nature in the context of documenting his day, an army of hustle zombies was created who believe, you know, and I've had conversations with many people who are like, I saw his 18-hour days and believed that if I didn't work 18-hour days, I was not measuring up. I was not doing enough. And then that's caused all sorts of mental anguish on workplaces and environments, coworkers saying, you need to Gary Vee it. And you know, like that sort of thing. Gary Vee is not the reason for that. Do you think it's their own? Like, I don't even know what I'm asking here.
I know exactly what you're talking about, and it's such a great observation. And I'm about to go down a rabbit hole with you. Here we go.
I'm ready. I got my pen. Hold on.
As humans, one of the truths about human beings and our nature and our psychology is we engage in social comparison. It's not a bad thing. It's just natural. So we are social beings. So we look around at others to gauge how we're doing. I mean, when people are doing better, we're like, oh, okay, I might need to I might need to push harder. If people are doing worse, helps us understand, okay, I'm at a place where I'm okay. So we socially compare. It's just natural. Now, you take our world, we used to socially compare in the schoolyard. Now you take our world today. And everywhere you look with social media, with videos, YouTube, all of this, the ability to social compare has become so intense and constant and global and fake, because you can fake anything you want and you can Photoshop anything you want, that our social comparison is on it's on crack cocaine. And the result of it, like, I don't know how else to describe it. The result of it is our mental health crisis has escalated among kids and adults to such an extreme point because we don't know how to handle it. I want to tell you a study that you probably have heard of that is so insane. It's so insane. Do you know the study that Facebook did that was so unethical? Do you remember?
Yeah, where they basically move people's moods by
they
manipulate.
Yeah, they manipulated the feed without telling people. I'm sure it was in the thing we signed, whatever. What they found, right? Put more negative feed, people became more negative and started posting more negative. Put more positive, posting more positive. This is emotional contagion. This is something that happens as humans. And this is something I'll be talking about. This is something that happens like that. You smile, I smile. You frown, I frown. We mimic one another. And it can happen in our electronic communication. It can happen in our face-to-face communication. This is one of the reasons why, we are having global contagion right now from the pandemic. Like, this is one of the reasons why we're seeing a rise in road rage, a rise in domestic violence, crazy fights on airplane, like all of that stuff. I'll talk about that stuff at the conference. But when celebrities or famous figures stand up and make claims, the potential, it can be very motivating, but the potential damage that it can have because of that social comparison thing is so profound that, you can create cultures of zombies.
Wow.
That are like, I have to work 18 hours. And if I don't, I'm a bad person. Because the way our brains interpret it is, that's good, I'm bad. If I'm not achieving that, I'm bad. Just look at our, the body image problems in this country. It escalated significantly during pandemic, with adults getting more plastic surgery now than they've ever had because they were staring at their faces. Teens staring at their faces on Zoom. All of a sudden, body image problems escalating, because we're comparing, we're looking, we're feeling, and we're so quick to say that's good, this is bad.
What
do we do about it?
So what you telling us?
Bye-bye. See you later.
Have a good day. Bye.
She's like, these are all good questions, and I'm going to leave them to you.
How does it make you feel?
Oh no.
And so like, I'm going to try to kind of like bring this to a point and saying, like, you're highlighting all these social comparison escalations that are happening now. And you're saying that social media, the pandemic, have really just exacerbated a situation and a mental condition that already existed, right? But now it's like on steroids, on crack
and not
cocaine.
A mental condition, a normal human psychological behavior.
Okay, yes, like not like thing clinically.
Yeah,
right? It's not a condition.
Right.
It is the human condition, right? It is
human condition.
And so, to me, one of the things that helps me get through that is being very resolved in what I'm heading toward. Like, it's an identity issue. How do you reconcile that for people? Like, how do you give people how do you help people get through that with a sense of healthy identity and a sense of healthy purpose? Like, how do you shift that narrative?
Yeah. Just answer it 3
question.
words.
You just wake up and
That's
do
a
it.
huge question.
I just do it.
But I think
We need Ron Dewan to tell us how he did it.
Can we get a Ron Dewan counter?
But I think there's that is a huge question. But I think that our identities that we create, our psychological identity that we create, the goals that we create need to be our own stuff. It can be inspired from other people that we watch. It can be we can be motivated and learn new things from other people. But someone's 18-hour day might be another person's 6-hour day, because that's what their psychology and brain is capable of. And it's amazing what they're capable of. And I think someone's goal, okay, what gets you going is having that direct goal. That's awesome for you. What might get me going is, I don't know, working toward vacation. I don't know. It's I think we have to, social comparison, all this stuff is going to happen. I think we need to talk about it more. I think the more people know about this stuff, the more
being aware that it's happening, right? The awareness of it is the first step.
When you have awareness, you can be agile. My life goal is to it's a big one. Every single person I ever talk to knowing about this stuff, because the more we know about this stuff, the more we know about psychological biases, the more we know how our brain works, the more we know the kind of the social comparison, all this stuff, the more we can choose how we're going to function with it. When we don't know it's happening, we don't have a choice.
I like that. You don't know what's happening. You don't have a choice. It's just the current of social comparison is just carrying you away, basically.
Yeah. And I think it's just okay. Even as we all learned, with that, what was that movie? The movie about social media where all the tech people spoke about.
The documentary.
Social Dilemma. Social Dilemma. The more we all learned about social media and the bad parts about it, then we could make a choice how we monitored ourselves and all of that. The more we learned, not all of us, but eventually we learned how much control our phones have and the dopamine hit, and that's more powerful, and the novel stimulus in your brain is more powerful than this. Well, then we can make a choice, but we needed to be aware of that. There was a time when we weren't aware of that and couldn't make that choice. So that's why I think talking about agility, talking about mental wellness, all of that, I'm putting them together, but they're different. They're just tied.
Intertwined. Yeah. Yep.
The better. We should talk about it as much as we talk about what we eat and our different fitness crazes, and
as much as we talk about Ron Dewan. I should do as much as we talk about
Ron Dewan.
Well, I'll tell you what, Nicole, I super appreciate this. I've got just, notes on notes, and I feel like I'm more aware at this point, and I can't wait to kind of hear you be a part of ASOTUCon and be in and amongst other auto dealers and industry partners it's wild to me, because if we start at this base level, all the things figuring out if digital retailing or direct to consumer, all that stuff just kind of comes as it comes. And so I can't wait for you to kind of kick us off. And thank you so much for sharing this time and your energy with us today. And
thank you.
We'll see you soon.
I'm super psyched. Thank you.
Ron Dewan. Hold on.
So it's Ron Dewan?
How do you spell Dewan? I don't think we ever clarified this.
D-U-A-N. At least that's how I remember it. But I don't know if I ever had to spell his name. I just know.
I was going D-W-O-N.
I had everything from close to Dwayne to D-U-O-N. But I also, this is interesting because I just realized his name is Ron Dewan.
What did you think? It was Rhonda?
No, I thought it was Juan.
Oh, he thought it was Rhonda. Juan
Dewan.
Oh, man. Well, look, that I don't know how Ron has just become the fourth host of this podcast. But without a doubt, that was one of my favorite interviews that we've had so far. Dr. Nicole Lipkin is she's just a boss. She's married to a comedian. right? Which really kind of has to lighten the load around the dinner table, especially when she's dealing with so much heavy stuff. And he's just like, this is my source for all my material.
Well, what's so interesting to me about this is that this is not a topic that I feel like we approach in business, let alone automotive, which is how do we approach the everyday? How do we approach the psychology of interacting with others or interacting with the way that you think about a meeting or the way that you approach a new problem? And what it really should be is the baseline for every interaction. It's been argued that like everybody should see a therapist, whether you think it or not.
Yeah,
and
that's true.
And whether you think you need it or not, and whether or not that needs to be the case, at least approaching things or having an ecosystem in which you can think about things the way that Nicole has asked us to think about and challenged me to, even in and throughout this interview, is healthy for whether you're a business leader or you're just getting into a new career role. And that's why I'm really excited for her to set the tone of our event in that way, because I think the approach at which people take this myriad of content, especially an event, is so important to the way that it might actually impact our business rather than consumption, that it's active participation. It takes a lot of mental agility to do that.
I felt selfish, if I'm being honest, in that interview, because I only asked the questions that I felt like I needed help with personally.
Well, isn't that kind of why the host is the host, right? They're supposed to have a good feel and kind of like be aligned with like, I think this is what people would want to know. Well, I'm just trying to give you too much credit.
Yeah.
You're like, no.
I don't know. I don't know. No, it's because I've read all of her literature.
He's like, so I know a guy, and I'm trying to coach him through this problem.
I know a guy.
He lives in Texas.
Kind of stocky. He's got a beard. Sometimes makes funny noises.
People always say we look alike, but
he's a friend of mine. I'm asking for a friend. But like, what I really love is the way she was able to position what I think is the next generation, the upbringing of the next generation of automotive, where clearly topics like mental health and workplace wellness and things of that nature are important. They're important to me. I know they're important to you. And those were typically topics that don't get discussed a lot. They were kind of faux pas, like, oh, just suck it up. Don't bring your problems to work. Our relationship ends with me signing your paycheck, kind of a thing. But now we have operators in the industry who are our age and some of them younger. And these types of things are important for us to be able to understand, maybe make a little bit more normal, less like shade on them, so that we are, as organizations and just as human beings, better equipped to help elevate one another.
Back when she was on the first live stream, the first ASOTU live stream, she was just starting to think through this topic of mental agility. I want to go back and listen to that. She posed it as being able to hear an opposing view and not react to it, right, with the bias, right? She said, and if you want to know how good you are at mental agility, watch, and that was obviously, there's like a lot going on in the world and election season and all that. She goes, watch the opposing news channel and just pay attention to how you react the second you see the anchor, the second you hear the story. She goes, that's going to give you an indicator of how mentally agile you are.
And think about that when it comes to industry partner dealer conversations, dealer OEM conversations. There's so much wisdom in that for automotive right now. It's unbelievable.
Oh, it's almost like when I say the three letters OEM, everybody has a reaction somehow.
Right.
Yeah. Somehow.
Pretty wild. Well, there's a lot to think about, and we can't wait for you to hang out with Nicole Lipkin at ASOTUCon, and just follow her if you're not right now. For Paul J. Daly, Michael Cirillo, and Kyle Mountsier, this has been Auto Collabs. We'll see you next time.
Welcome to Auto Collabs.